Hey, it's Kevin, and today I'm going to be doing a video showing you what my process is for reloading the 30-30 Winchester round. So I'm going to be using, today I'm going to be using the single stage Lee progressive breech lock press, and I'll be loading with the IMR 4064 gunpowder, and I'm just going to go through step by step and show you how I reload this particular cartridge. So effectively what we have here is all of the components to make a 30-30 bullet. We have, of course, the brass, the bullet shell, which I have put through the tumbler. This is once fired brass, and I put this through the tumbler so it's ready to go. Winchester primer. Today I'm reloading, the bullets that I'm using is a 150 grain flat nose bullet made by Sierra, and today I'll be reloading with the IMR 4064 gunpowder. So this video I'm going to go through all of my processes from case preparation all the way to seating the bullet and preparing it to fire. So this is just my process of how I reload this particular cartridge. This is not necessarily a recommendation how anybody else should reload this cartridge, but let's get started. Okay, so the first step that I do is I have to lubricate the cases, okay? So a way that I've found that to lubricate the cases that's very easy and works perfect for me is I take a sandwich bag, just like this, and some lubricant. You can get all different kinds of lubricants from just about anywhere. You can buy any kind of reloading supplies. Today I'm using the Dillon case lubricant, okay? And I just take this and I take it one single spray inside the bag, just like this, okay? I don't know if you can see that or not. And then I just simply take a handful, one at a time, and I drop them in the bag until the bag is, I don't know, partially full, halfway full. You don't want to put too much in here, and you don't want to put too little in here. Today I'm just going to do just something like that. Just kind of a handful inside there, all right? It's important that when you zip the bag up, that you leave a little bit of air inside there. You want a little bit of space in there, okay? And then I just take them just like this and roll them around just like that. This is just how I do it. It's always worked great for me. You want to make sure that you are lubricating your cases so that you're not damaging your dies when you run the old spent shells up into the die, because it can damage them if you don't. Okay, so I'm going to get these ready to go into the depriming and resizing die. Okay, today, so the die set that I'm going to be using to reload these bullets today is the Lee die set. So I'll kind of open this up. I'm going to do a full review on this particular die set, so wait for that video to come out. But today I'll just kind of open this up and give you an idea of what this looks like. So this is kind of how it comes from the store. You just open it up and it has some instructions and a little case that goes with it. But today we're just going to be looking at the dies. Okay, so you open this up and it has three dies in there. It has this one. The first one is the decapping and resizing die, which is the one that we're going to be setting up right now. This one, like I said, this pin right here pushes out the old primer, and the inside of this die then resizes the bullet to its new, or back to its factory specs. This die here is the case mouth flaring die, or sorry, actually this is the factory crimp die. So at the end we will put a little crimp on our bullets, and then the bullet seating die. So that's kind of just in a nutshell what's in this die set. We will need this shell holder to go on our press, and we will get that all set up right now. Okay, so essentially we have here everything that we're going to need to decap and reprime this bullet case. So the first thing that we are going to do is to set the, actually the first thing that we're going to do is to put the Lee shell holder on the press, which is very easy. You simply just take this and just it clips right into there just like that. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, the next step is to take the die, and this is a very easy die to set up. I just kind of back the lock nut off a little bit, place inside the press just like this. I raise the ram all the way up to the top of the stroke, and then I screw it down until the die touches the shell holder, just like that. And then what I like to do is just bring it down just a hair. Bag it down just like that, and then I can create just a tiny bit of tension on that die so that I can lock this this nut down. Okay, so then all I have to do is simply bring the ram down, place the bullet shell inside the press it up, and you'll hear it pop. And you probably couldn't hear that, but it actually dropped out the old primer, and this is probably going to shake the camera. But we just pull it down just like that, and voila, we have a bullet shell that now has no primer. Now you will see, and this will be part of the video as well, you will see that just inside there it has some soot and some carbon from when I fired it the last time, but you'll notice that the in comparison, we'll see if we can get one, you'll see how distorted that is, okay? And then in comparison, now we have a nice, perfectly uniformed and round place to see our bullet, and we are going to be getting these ready to clean out the primer sockets and put a new primer in it. So pretty easy stuff, kind of relaxing. You just sit here and go through each of the processes, go slowly, make sure that you're doing everything methodically and doing everything exactly the right way. Anything you do, you want to make sure that you're being safe when you're reloading. Reloading can be a lot of fun. It can be a great way to make shooting sports much more affordable. But you just want to make sure that you're being very careful and you're doing everything slowly and making sure that you're doing all the right things. So I will go ahead and I will press the rest of these. I will deprime and resize the rest of these, and then we will go on to the next stage. Okay, so now I have gone through and I have taken all my cases and I have deprimed and resized each one of them. So now what I have to go do is go through each one of them and take this little tool that you can get for, I don't know, a couple of bucks at Cabela's or Midway USA or what have you. And you got to take and you got to run this in here and clean out that little bit of carbon residue inside each one of those primer sockets. Now you can go through and go just like this to each one, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I've found a way that that makes it just a little bit quicker for me, and I'll show you how I do it. And again, do what you want to do. But what I do is I take this drill, back the chuck out until it's nice and wide, and I just simply put it inside here and clamp it down a little bit. Nothing too serious, just enough so I can spin it, okay? Inside there just like that. And then I go through one by one, and I just take and clean out each primer socket one by one, and just go through and make sure that we get all of the as much of the residue as we can out of each one of them. I'm going to turn this down to a little slower. And you just go through each one and get the primer socket prepared for a new primer. So I'll go through, do a few of these, and then I'll reposition the camera. You don't have to sit here and watch me do each one of them, but so we decap, resize, or we lubricate, decap, resize, clean the primer pockets out, and then the next step will be to trim the cases down to their factory spec, and then deburr the top of the case, and then we're getting closer to being ready to put powder in them. So we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so actually after measuring each one of these shells, it looks like they are all trimmed to a good length, so I am actually not going to trim them, which will save me one step. So what I'm ready for now is primers. So again, I'm using the Lee single stage. I'm kind of doing a whole single stage thing right now. I also have the progressive reloader press that I use for pistol caliber rounds, but right now I'm focused on these. So what I use is this Lee hand priming tool, which I'll do a nice in-depth video on each one of these components. I'm going to do a nice in-depth video to help you understand what it is and what you're getting and how much it costs, and if maybe it would be something that you might want to buy. So this is really pretty simple. I've put all my primers in here. Again, I'm using today I'm using Winchester large rifle primers for these particular bullets. So you can see I have it set on lock right now. So I'm going to flip back the primers. I'm going to set it on. Make sure you don't set it on open, otherwise you are going to have primers all over your bench. So the primers drop down, and as soon as I push that ram forward, you see the ram come up. Now once it drops back, a primer pops into here and is ready to go up. So I'm going to go one by one. Again, empty primer socket, put inside here, and you just take with your finger. Not too much and not too little. It's kind of one of those things where you just gotta judge it. You want to make sure that the primer is not. I'll press one in here. You want to make sure that it's at least flush with the end of the bullet. Otherwise you have a potential for possible misfires. You don't want anything to be able to set that primer off. However, I have had in some 357 Magnum loads and some 38 special loads where I pressed them a little too deep and actually didn't get a bang when I thought I was going to, because the firing pin didn't strike it hard enough because it was too deep in there. So it's one of those things where you just run your finger across, make sure that it's flush but not too recessed. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and do each one of these. Again, kind of relaxing, just going through, pressing each one, check and make sure it's good, and just one by one get it ready. The next step is to once we've gotten primers in all of these shells, then we are going to be ready to start measuring powder loads, which is usually the most time-consuming part, in my opinion, at least in my experience with reloading. But I actually just went out and got this Lee powder measure. Before I was just using the scoops and just measuring each shell one by one, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's always worked for me, but it just, when you get to that stage, depending on how many bullets you're trying to press in that particular day, it can just be very time consuming. So I went out and got this. So actually this will be the first time that I'm using this particular powder measure, so I'm hoping it'll work well and it will save me some time. So we're going to find out together. Okay, I am going to continue to prime each one of these, and once they're all primed, we'll get them ready for powder loads, and we'll keep on moving. Okay, so now we have all of our bullet shells are decapped, resized, lubricated, and have a new primer in them. So right now we're at the stage where it's time to put a powder load in each one of these. Okay, now this is where you have to be very, very, very careful. So today I'm just using this this Lee powder measure for the first time, but I have played around with it a little bit, so I understand how it works, and I'm going to do a video showing you how to calibrate this and to how to adjust the powder loads and all of that. Today what I'm doing is I am putting in a 31 grain powder load into each one of my bullets. So right now I still don't have full trust in this, so I'm going to run the powder load with the powder measure, but I'm still going to just verify each powder load in my with my scale. So I think that's probably a best practice. I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't be a good idea to do that. So I'm going to go through and start charging each one of these cases. So we'll start. We run this up. This little reservoir here fills with powder as it comes down. It's important with this powder measure, from what I understand, that you always do the same procedure every single time. So right now I'm measuring. That's pretty much exactly where I want to be, just shy of 31 grains, which 31 grains is the powder load that I wanted. So I'd rather it be just a hair shy. Usually I'm looking for within 1/10. Or sorry, not 1/10, but a tenth of a grain. A tenth of a grain is a pretty good rule of thumb, either one way or the other. But if you want to be more precise, you can certainly do that. Like I said, uniformity I think is key here. So I just go up, I tap on the side, I drop the powder measure, I give it another couple taps, verify weight. Yep, I'm pretty much perfect. I'm just a little bit shy on both of these, which again, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure I'm not a quarter grain high or a half a grain high. I'm well within the specs for this powder with this bullet and this bullet bullet weight, but still I want it to be as precise as possible. So I'm just gonna measure loads again. I want to be very slow and uniformed with what I do. So again, boom, 30.9. I'm right on the button, so I'm not gonna mess with it too much. With this powder, I think this powder is probably a little bit hard to measure in this powder measure, given it's kind of I think they call it bar powder, or it's kind of little cylindrical beads inside there, so I imagine it's probably hard to measure it exact when you're measuring by volume. Again, we just move slowly and methodically when we're doing these powder measures, and just start loading them with powder. So I will continue to do this, and I'll go ahead and I will load all 50 of these. Again, I'm doing 50, so I'm just trying to show you the first couple, and then kind of move on to the next step of the process, because I don't want to make this video too long. Nobody wants to sit here and listen to me for too long. So I'm going to go ahead, load up the rest of these, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is resetting a new die and calibrating bullet length, case overall length, and kind of finishing the process and getting these bad boys ready to take to the range. Okay, so we have loaded each one of these with a powder charge using this Lee Perfect powder measure, I believe it's called. We just use this for the first time in actual application. I've messed with it a little bit just to see how it worked, but I will say that I am very impressed with this. It probably cut my powder measuring time. I probably got it done in a quarter of the time I normally would. It went really quick. This thing is definitely worth the money. I think I paid $25 for the thing at Cabela's. I'll do a whole nother video on this thing, but absolutely worth the money in my opinion. So now what we're going to do is I want to go through and look down each one of these rows and verify that there's a powder charge in each one of them. I want to make sure that there's not a double charge in any of them, and I want to make sure that there's not a squib load in any of them, which means no powder or not enough powder. So we do that by real simply just kind of going through row by row, shell by shell, and looking in each one of them. Okay, so we can quickly visually see each one has a powder charge so far, I guess. So, okay, good. These all look good. So now the next step is to, in our Lee press, we're going to put in the next die, and we're gonna start putting in bullets. Okay, so now we're on to the home stretch of our little reloading project here, and it's time to start seating bullets. So the first thing that we have to do is to put the die, install the die into the press, and the way that we do that is we take the die and we screw it down in here, and again we'll put the ram all the way to the top of the stroke, screw it all the way down until it hits the ram. Okay, all the way down, touches the ram. Then bring the ram down just a little bit, give it just about a quarter turn, just enough to put tension on, put the ram up, and then use that tension to lock down the top nut. Okay, now we're done. We'll want to back out this top set screw, which is actually what sets the bullet, the bullet depth inside the shell casing. Okay, so we'll just bring it out high enough that where we know that it's going to be too high, essentially, for what we want. Okay, so we're going to put the shell in the shell holder, and we're going to put a bullet inside the shell. Again, today we're using a 150 grain Sierra 30 caliber bullet, and we're just going to go ahead and put it in the top. Take it up into the die all the way to the top of the stroke, and you'll feel it kind of resist a little bit and seat that bullet a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to pull it out, and I know that it's not even close, because where I'm actually trying to get is right about that cantilever, but what I'm trying to get is a 2.52 reading on my calipers here. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out and measure it, and I know that we're too far, but I just want to see how far off we are. Okay, so 2.52 is going to be right there. Okay, so the bullet has to be that long, so we're that much too long. Can you see that? Try to give you a better look at it. We're that much too long right now. Okay, so obviously we need to continue to put this down, so we'll just go ahead and give this a couple of good screws, and then we'll put her back in here all the way back down to the top of the stroke again. Okay, we're getting closer, but I can still tell we're not at the cantilever yet, so we got a little ways to go, but let's check our caliper. Again, we're getting closer. All right, so we'll give it another couple of screws, and we'll bring it up, and we'll keep checking. The good thing is that obviously you don't have to do this for however many shells that you're loading that day. Basically just the first one, and you want to just adjust a little bit until you get it just right. Okay, so we're getting really close, you can see. So now I'll start measuring what the actual is. So right now we're smack at 2.6. 2.60 is where we're at. So we need to, now I'm just going a quarter turn at a time till I really start to hone it in. So we were at 2.6, now we're at 2.587. All right. So another, we'll give it a half a turn this time. There we go. And now you can kind of see that we're starting to land in that cantilever, if you can see that. Okay, so now we're at 2.558. 2.558, remember we're trying to get to 2.520. So we're probably going to end up at the top end of that cantilever. 2.535. .525. So I'm just going to give it just a little bit, see how that works, and I think that'll be good. Where you can see that we're smack in the middle. If we can get that to zoom there, obviously we can't, but we're right in the middle of that cantilever, and I really like that. So let's see where we ended up. Hopefully right about 5.2. 5.2 straight on the money. Okay, so now hopefully we'll be good for the rest of ours. But there you got one 30-30 bullet, just like that. And really, it's ready to go in my gun. You don't have to, but I probably will put a factory crimp on this. But you definitely don't have to in a lever action gun. So we'll go ahead, we'll put the next one in here, and then we'll put the bullet in here, and then we'll just measure it just to verify that we're good. Right on the money. Right on the money. 2.521. That's pretty good for $30 press. I'm pretty happy with that. And for what I do with these are range bullets that I'm using these for. So I'm pretty good with that. So now once I've set my die and I've got my press up and running, you just go through and just run the press. And this is the enjoyable part. You just, it's kind of relaxing. You escape from the kids and work and everything, and just come down here and run the press and get ready to go to the range, which is what we all love doing. I like to kind of hold on to the actual bullet slug while it goes up, just to make sure that it doesn't turn or fall off the top. I don't have a flaring die, a die that flares the end of these, so I just don't want the bullet to fall on its side and damage the shell case. So I just kind of hold on to it with my fingers, all the way up into the die, and once it's in the die, it's not going to move. And then you just press it up in there just like that. So I will go ahead and go through each one of these, and then we'll finish up at the end. Okay, how beautiful is that? There we go. 50, 30, 30 bullets ready for the range, ready to go. I'm going to do one last thing with these, and you really don't need to do it, especially with a bolt action, but maybe a little more so for a lever action gun because it feeds through a tube magazine. But I'm going to go ahead and just complete the video with it anyway by putting a little bit of a factory crimp on it. Okay, so since the die set comes with it, you might as well do it. So right here is the crimp die. So the way that you install this die is, I'll back this out, and you install it all the way down. Again, lift the ram. I think they've made all of these dies to be easy to install. You lift the ram all the way up, all the way down until it touches the shell holder. And then this time it says pull the ram down and go a half a turn. So we'll use this as a reference, 1/2 of a turn. And what that does is you can see this, the base of the die, when it contacts with the ram, it goes up just a little bit. And inside this die, it's just compressing inside the top of the die. So that's just enough to put just a little bit of a crimp on it. Just enough to, hopefully keep it from hanging up in your gun when it's cycling through. So again, from what I understand, you don't really need it. I usually put it on there just to make it a nice complete round. So this is kind of the last stage, so we'll just go through, again, one bullet at a time, and just give it a little bit of a crimp. So I'll take a look at it. It's just got barely enough that you can even notice. So let's compare it. Yeah, you can notice it. I might even turn it in just a hair more. Just a hair more. We'll see how that does. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So I'm going to go through each one of these. I'll run this one back up through here just to make it all uniform. I'm going to go through each one of these and put a little factory crimp on it, and then these bad boys are going to be ready for the range. So there you go. We started with a bullet shell, a bullet slug, a primer, and a powder load, and this is what we end up with. A 30-30 Winchester rifle bullet. So there you go. That's my process on how I make a 30-30 Winchester bullet using the Sierra 150 grain bullet, IMR 4064 powder, and the Lee single stage press. There's certainly countless different ways that you can make this bullet. This is just my process. You should definitely rely on your load data from whatever source that you get that from. I tried not to talk too much about load data today. I'm not recommending any specific load or anything like that, but I'm ready to go to the range with these bad boys. I'll probably do a video when I take them to the range just so that everybody can kind of see a cycle of literally from all of the components sitting on my bench to a bullet hole downrange in a target. So thank you for watching. If you have any comments, by all means, go ahead and comment below. If there's anything that you think that would be cool for me to try out, I'd love to hear about it, or any products that you would want me to do a review on or explain how they work, at least for my knowledge of how they work. I'd be happy to do that. Again, like and subscribe, and have a great day.